Alrighty. Welcome to Mediocre Rumble Brothers. I'm Udon, your host, with Corey and Edwin here. Um, this is our new monthly segment I'd like to call Anime Book Club. There's no books, but I just thought it was a cute name. So essentially, uh, this is going to be kind of like a sister show to our Game of the Month, but not nearly as intensive. We're basically going to take a season from any old anime we want to watch. We all watch it, and then we all share our thoughts about the season monthly. Whether we continue with the show or not, or we can skip to any other show we want, depending on whether we like it or not. But yeah, so this is our first one, and out of a bunch of anime that I threw at the group here to choose from, they all picked Overlord, which I adore. Overlord, big fan of it. Not a huge fan of the isekai genre in general, but I do think Overlord's one of the good ones. So I'm just kind of winging it here. We might go over this episode by episode, but generally we're just gonna everyone get everyone's like thoughts and feelings on some broader subjects about the show first. So to both of you, have you now? What did you guys know about Overlord prior to going into the show, or have you watched it before and how long ago is that between that and like this rewatch?
I think I tried watching it a few years ago, maybe back when it was like kind of just starting, because some of it started to seem familiar to me. But I think I was watching it with a buddy, and I don't know why I stopped. Maybe I just didn't have the subscription service or something like that. But we were just kind of like trying to find something new to watch, and I'm a fan of things like Berserk, Claymore, Bastard, things like that. So a lot more mature medieval fantasy anime, but I kind of also diversify the themes of what I tend to watch too. But they all kind of float around being more uh, like rated M, I suppose. Some shonens here and there, but yeah.
So I guess not really anything. You kind of understood the general concept of the show, but it was more you were kind of going to this fresh, more or less. Then.
Yeah. I haven't even like seen the manga or anything. Like I'm familiar with the character. Like I've seen him. I know that you have like a statue of him, but I've seen mostly I've seen Albedo because of the fan art and stuff. So typically that's like my how I discover a lot of anime in general is like the art feed that I usually see. People start drawing a character a bunch, and I'm like, oh, what's that from? And then it's like, oh, okay, so there's this new show out, I guess. And it kind of is how you know when like something's really popular is every like Twitter artist or social media artist is drawing like one of the characters from it over and over again, and it's almost like free marketing.
I mean, welcome to Overlord merchandising, where it's about 96% Albedo, 2% Shaltier, and then 2% everything else.
Yeah.
um, all right, so that's cool. I'm going to be really interested in hearing your opinions on this. What about you, Edwin? Have you watched this before, or what did you know about it going into it?
Seen Overlord. I've only seen like a few clips, just very random, mainly of like the relationship between Albedo and Ainz, but I didn't understand like anything above like the surface level of like it was like, oh, she likes him, and then he's the Overlord and he's Ainz Ooal Gown, and then that was pretty much it. I've never seen like any of the other floor guardians or any other character. I think the only character outside of those two that I've seen was like the Gonoff, the soldier. It's just like it was just a fight between
Gazif?
him, yeah, Gazif Stronov. It was just like a duel between him and Ainz, and that was it. That was like the last thing that I saw, and I didn't even know where it was from.
All right, cool. So two fresh faces. Ooh, I'm excited to talk about this then. Much like a lot of my obsessions, I actually didn't initially really care for Overlord. I thought it was okay. I definitely didn't think it was bad by any means. But I was like, yeah, it's all right. It's a bit slow. I wish I could like understand more about this world. Because only recently, Yen Press Audio has actually started doing audiobooks of a lot of light novels because this is where Overlord originated as a light novel written by Kugane Mariyama. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce that. But So they were audiobooks, and I've always wanted to read the light novels of a lot of things, including Konosuba, but I just don't have the time. But audiobooks I do have the time for at my job. So I have actually listened to all available audiobooks for Overlord available, and they also did a really cool thing. I think I mentioned this before, but they hired the English voice actor for Ainz to narrate the book, and he does a fantastic job. Um, so I'm like super into it. And I don't mean to say this derogatorily towards the anime, but I do think the light novels are better because they give you more context into a lot of things. They can take a lot more things slower. But the anime, for what they have for adapting it from book to screen, they did a pretty good job. Uh, and I really, really love it. This and Konosuba are like the only two isekai animes I like. And for anyone who doesn't know, an isekai anime is essentially just like you're basically taking a character from like our modern day setting and they somehow get magically transported to like a fantasy world or something, usually by dying, unfortunately. But you'll see they're like a dime a dozen nowadays. It's this genre that like randomly exploded like, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago, and it hasn't gone away yet. But yeah, Overlord. So the basic premise is, again, it's an isekai. So our main character, Momonga, or at least that's how his name is originally, he is playing a DMMO RPG, which, just basically take it like this. It's essentially plug your brain into the computer and you can like fully immerse yourself into the video game, because the story does take place in like 2184 or something like that. It's like super way in the future from what we are now, but details like that are important. Basically, his MMO called Yggdrasil is getting shut down for reasons unknown to us, but basically, from what you hear in the book, again, the book expounds on a lot of stuff about the game a lot more. That helps you understand how Ainz thinks about stuff. But it's getting shut down, and he's hanging out in his guild, saying bye to like his last like guild member, and just kind of reminiscing nostalgia stuff about his guild and all the time he spent with his MMO. And when the clock hit zero to where it's supposed to shut down, he finds himself basically transported into his avatar's body, which is this undead skeleton lord looking guy. All the NPCs of his guilds are alive now, and everything's been transported into this fantasy world, and he knows nothing about what's going on. That's the general premise. That's like the hook for it, right? So I guess we'll do a couple like superficial things first, just to get it out of the way. What do you guys think about like the art style and the animation? Whoever wants to take the reins on it, go ahead.
I think the art style is good. It's it kind of has a familiar look to it for a lot of the animes that I've watched. A lot of harsh lines and things like that, but it doesn't seem like a lot of lazy animation. I think the character designs are really cool and they're kind of fun, and there's a lot of locations for them to visit. So yeah, I think when it comes to some of the combat stuff, like the magic's cool, the effects are really neat, especially for the time frame. Like if you're comparing this to like Farron or whatever, like there's a like that whole show's like effects are just crazy. But um, considering this is still the first season, I don't know if it evolves over time, but I think they're pretty good. It was still moderately entertaining for me, and it was a lot more on the graphic side than I thought it would be, which was kind of interesting. I thought it was going to kind of like hide that or imply things more, but it was just like, nope, that guy's head's gone. It's like, oh, okay.
And what about you, Edwin?
I like the character designs a lot. They all look really cool and they all look unique from each other. The animation, I was not expecting. Well, I mean, the second I saw like the people, the companies involved in this, it was like, oh, this is like really high budget anime. And then I saw like, oh, they even have like 3D CGI fights in it. So I was like, oh, this is much more than I expected. The animation was like way up from the very beginning. I thought it just built up later on. But I like the colors. It's like everything's colorful, but in like a darker tone, which just adds to like how dark the story is from Ainz's perspective against the world. I just thought it was really cool right off the bat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the background work is really good. A lot of the times you might see, My Hero Academia, for example. Like if you pay attention to the backgrounds, granted they're like shoveling episodes because it's a shonen. The backgrounds have to be simplified, but they have this texture that's kind of overlaid on everything, and it's really simplistic. But when you have shows like Demon Slayer and this, where when you look at the background, there's just so much detail. It's they definitely spend a lot of time on every single like camera angle for like the world that you're in.
Yeah, I'm with Edwin. Like especially the character design, I absolutely fucking adore because Ainz himself, I love. I don't know, I I like broad-shouldered characters. Well, the character himself isn't, but just his mage outfit makes him look really wide and it's really cool looking, like kind of intimidating presence, and just the colors and everything are really nice. Um, the general design of his skeleton, having him like red eyes and his like eyeless sockets, little red pupils, and he has like this red orb underneath his rib cage. Just I don't know, it's everything comes together and makes it look really nice. Along with all the floor guardians. I mean, Albedo has the most merchandise for a reason. She's incredibly attractive, but I also kind of like, you don't see it very often, but I do like it when they make like devils or imps with like the wings on their hips. I don't know. I just think it looks neat. Especially, I actually really like Cocytus. I love giant bug creatures. He is very cool looking. But and yeah, as far as the Corey, you mentioned the violence, and yeah, this anime is pretty violent. Again, a point for the light novel though. The light novel goes into more detail, and it can be a lot gorier than what we see. It does get a lot worse in the light novel, but again, you can't. You're able to afford that. All you have to do is describe things rather than actually show it on screen, right? So
Yeah.
And yeah, about the CG, Edwin. Typically, I don't care for CG in anime, but this doesn't really bother me that much because I felt like it was integrated fairly well. I mean, it's obvious when something's using CG models, but it's not terrible. I think the only time it kind of annoys me is that later in the season when Ainz is role playing as Momon, he goes from like 2D to 3D when the action sequence starts, so it's kind of jarring in that aspect, but it still looks really cool.
That outfit is also freaking sick. His
yes,
like dark armor.
Yes, big dudes in knight armor is fucking awesome. That is my weakness when it comes to character design. I don't care; it looks badass, and I love it.
It kind of reminds me of a lot of characters. Like I mentioned, Guts. He's like a giant knight. Then the main character from Bastard, they have that. That's like a '90s thing. So like the '90s aesthetic with the giant shoulder pads. I also think of the like main antagonist in Lunar. Like he looks super dope, and he's got like the giant cloak shoulder pads, like basically a giant fuck you rectangle.
Yeah. So second, just kind of superficial thing. I say superficial, but it's more just like general thoughts sort of thing overall. Before we get into some details, what did you guys watch it in? Did you watch it subbed or dubbed? And it doesn't matter which one, or if you flip flopped. And what did you think of either or both? Depending on which one you watch. Like, how do you think the voice acting was?
Oh, I did dubbed. Not that I have anything against sub. It's just it depends on what I'm doing. So if I'm like eating dinner or something and trying to watch anime, I can't really read and watch or read and eat at the same time. I know that's like probably a skill issue thing, but it's more entertaining for me to just be able to listen to it. So I just went with dub. It was just easier.
Okay.
No, I just flip flop between them because I was watching in different places. In like a break room, and then sometimes by myself. So it was like I didn't want to like have it on loud just so I can hear it. So I was like, it was just easier to read when there were people around. But I flip flop. I didn't really have a problem with either sub or dub. They both the choices for the voice acting for each one was like fit really well. So switching even between them didn't really seem that big of a difference. They seemed pretty accurate to each other.
Yeah, there's some familiar voices in the dub. I feel like the butler guy is father, or the Führer or whatever from Full Metal, but I could be wrong. But Ainz's like double voice thing, it's weird, but it kind of I got used to it as the season went. But everybody's voices seem to be pretty good. Like I didn't find any character particularly annoying, but they don't really have a character that is particularly annoying either. I think Albedo is the only one that does the most like weird screeching stuff, but that's for other reasons.
I like the double voice for Ainz. I just like his panic in both voices is just very funny to hear.
Well, yeah, it's the contrast between his very like confident sounding like outward voice and his inner voice, just kind of like is freaking out like office worker like voice that he used to have. Um, yeah, so this is like my I think my third or fourth time going through the first season of Overlord. And because I had been listening to it on audiobook and that I knew that the voice actor for Ainz was the guy narrating, I was like, you know what, I'll give the dub a shot because kind of like Corey, I was kind of like double tasking. I'm pretty busy, so I was trying to I was playing something and I had like my iPad set up watching it and to my side, and it's a lot easier when you don't have to read the subtitles, even though they help. So just listening to it was fine, and I don't have anything particular against dubbed anime. I just feel like on a large scale, Japanese voice actors tend to put more emotion into their acting, but that's just kind of broadly speaking. It's not definitely not a rule, but I was actually really impressed with the dub. Honestly, I think the only thing at first that threw me off is I thought Albedo's voice was too like cutesy, but that was literally only in the first scene. Once the voice actress I think got into her role and like she was like more like professional, it sounded much more appropriate. And for characters like Aura and Mare, who are like the kid characters, I'm always scared of them when they like when characters like that are in dubs because it's like, oh boy, you can do this so wrong and just like annoy the piss out of me. But I thought they were really good and they didn't annoy me at all. So I was like, okay, that's great. Um, yeah, all the characters I think had pretty good dubbed voice actors. It's been a long time since I listened to an anime dubbed, and I was pleasantly surprised at this. Sometimes I'm not a historian, but when it comes to the translation, they did a pretty good job. It's obviously not one to one, but I don't think they omitted anything. Pretty much everything they say in the sub is this what they say in the dub, more or less, maybe rearranged or contextualized differently. But I don't think anything's being like thrown out or censored or anything. So that was cool. Um, and I was the guy who does Ainz was just as good in the anime as he is narrating the book, which is great. Uh, so I guess more we'll get this is getting more specifics and more specific kind of topics before if we have to hit episode by episode. But if you had to name your favorite character so far, I know it's only in the first season, and the whole point is to maybe ask this every season in an anime just to see if anyone's opinions change. But if you had a favorite character, who would it be so far?
Probably just from like screen presence, probably the dark armor version. So what is that, Momon? Like I'm terrible with names.
Momon.
Like I
Yep,
just
Momon.
yeah, I just because the armor itself just looks super cool. It kind of reminds me of Cecil from Final Fantasy 2 or 4, whichever you're. Whenever you played it, it was 2 when I played it. He's a Dark Knight in Final Fantasy, and the armor set's kind of similar.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Demiurge.
Oh, you do. It's kind of interesting because he's not well. I mean, remember, think about just in the first season. I know you kind of rushed ahead and finished everything that's fucking available, and I know Demiurge gets a much larger presence later. But you still think that even if you're only referring to the first season?
I could
Well,
see that.
I mean, I can easily just say like Ainz, but that would be like a very like obvious answer. But it's like from the very beginning when I saw Demiurge, he looked like somewhat the most human outside of Albedo and some of the others. So it's like I was very curious because he looked human, kind of like a dark elf, but he had like the really like small glasses and like tuxedo, but he had this weird tail behind him, kind of like a not really like a scorpion tail, but it was like really long. So his presence compared to everyone else was the most eye catching and interesting because I had no idea what he was. Everyone else was more obvious.
True. Yeah, he's just a demon, but he's really fucked up demon. But obviously, you learn that as you go into it. Mine would probably. I mean, you say it's easy, but it's obviously Ainz for me because I love him. I can't help but love him. I kind of relate to him. He's like my favorite like isekai protagonist. He's just trying to do his best with what knowledge he has and trying to keep it all together while maintaining this presence he never had to before. And I don't think that's changed since it hasn't changed as I've gone through the entire series. So Ainz is always my favorite. I like intelligent main characters, and he's trying his best to work things out to hit everything from different angles. Like I really like characters that try to work things out and try and like take the most intelligent approach and still kind of fuck up here and now, now and again, understandably. So I guess at this point, I guess I'll start asking more specific questions about each episode. But how did you guys feel about like the first episode and like the introduction to how like the whole story is set up between like the Yggdrasil ending and like how Ainz approaches like how like discovering he's like in like this new world?
First, I don't typically watch isekai, so it kind of had that like Assassin's Creed thing to me. And I guess to preface that more, like I got Valhalla Assassin's Creed, and I really liked the Valhalla part of it. But every time the Assassin's Creed part showed up, I was like, "Oh, get this out of here! I want to play the Viking part." So whenever like it's like, okay, we're in this like medieval fantasy world, like that's really cool, but whenever they bring up like the PC stuff and he starts talking about the game, it's just kind of like I'm not as interested in that as much. And then that kind of carries through a little bit more when he's referring to his friends and stuff, and I understand they're like world building. So like that being said, I was still kind of interested because this character isn't like the typical isekai guy who's like, oh, I'm some like wiener that has two swords and I guess I'm really strong later. This is literally like a final boss character who's like, what the hell happened? And then he's already kind of top of the food chain, in a sense of like being an evil king, I guess. So that kind of was interesting, and it's more of him role playing later as an entry level soldier, which you don't really do a good job disguising yourself as entry level when your armor looks so fucking cool. But the initial episode was enough for me to kind of be like, okay, I'm kind of here, like let's see. I wasn't sure if they were going to explain more about this transfer right away, but at the same time it's like, well, I don't really care about that as much. I'm sure maybe later they'll touch on it, but I'm more interested in the world that they're in.
Well, and see, that's the interesting part, right? Because unlike a lot of isekai anime that like the protagonist seems to like fall into everything and they just understand everything immediately, like everything is just like super easy to understand, and like the show story whatever doesn't really like address how the character understands these things, despite it's like literally if you were like dumped into a fantasy world, you would have no idea how the fuck anything works. And so that's why I really like Ainz, because, as soon as he, gets in, he's like, oh, am I still in the game? So anybody's like, oh, the NPCs are talking. What the hell's going on? Like, he's taking it step by step. He starts talking to Albedo. He starts ordering the other servants around with like non-commands. He can't bring up any of his menus. I don't really care for like one of the first things he does is like this fan service moment where he gropes Albedo. But I mean, again, it's like he's like, I shouldn't be able to do this, and he's like, but I can do it, and then it just evolves into like a comedy bit. But then the next thing he does is go and be like, well, can I teleport? He's like, well, if I just think about doing stuff, like how does my magic work? Am I really a skeleton? Like he's taking it step by step and just trying to understand what the hell's going on. Like, how does this world work? And I really appreciate that because it's interesting to me, because I'm like, yes, that's what I would be wanting to know if I was in this situation, like taking it step by step and learning how everything works, especially as the episodes develop, because he's like, oh, how does our currency measure up? What are the rules of this world? Like, do they even have magic in this world? And then like the more interesting bit, you say, I mean, I'm not saying you're downplaying it, but the fact that you actually don't get a whole lot of Ainz reminiscing about Yggdrasil in the anime, or at the very least much less than he does in the light novel, because the thing is that Yggdrasil is the only angle he has to go on, so he has to compare everything in this world to how it works in Yggdrasil, and whether or not it's a one for one or it doesn't work exactly like it is, like kind of does, or it's completely new. Like the martial arts are a thing that don't exist in Yggdrasil, so he's like, oh, that's new. I need to learn about that. So, and you'll get a lot more because obviously books allow you to delve into a character's thoughts a lot more, because, as they're thinking about a subject, they can spend like a paragraph or two just being like, and then this is how this worked in the game, so I'm comparing it to how this works in here, yada, 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 yada. But you can't really do that in a visual medium too well. Because even like as an example, when he's talking to the village elder, and I think it's in the second episode, that scene takes a lot, like everything that he discusses and basically what's like the Cliff Notes version or the Spark Notes version in the anime is like, I talked to this guy and we talked about this, and this. Okay, moving on. Like you actually get to hear all those conversations in full and how he's figuring all that shit out. So it's really neat to me. Edwin, what did you think about the first episode?
I was a little confused. I was not entirely sure like how he was even going to be isekai'd, because it just happens. Is like with it's like not like he dies or anything. It just like the game shuts down and now he's another world. Sometimes in a trailer, I always wonder, or like the clips that I see, I immediately wonder. It's just like, why are they taking this shit so seriously? It was like, aren't they just in a video game? Because like the Sword Art Online type of mentality, it was like, you're in a video game. Why are you taking like the deaths of your allies so seriously? You're just gonna respawn. And I took the same idea when I was watching, when I just randomly see Overlord clips on the internet. And then now watching the first episode, it's like, oh, well, I guess that makes a bit more sense. You were in a video game, and now it's reality. So, does it not? It just made completely more sense. Everything I've seen so far.
Well, again, but it's also why I kind of like it, though. It's like it's the video, his video game. Like he just took his whole guild and teleported it there, and how it works in Nazarick, which is his guild, is the same, but it's like it's incorporating. The world itself is not the same, so he has to learn so much shit, and he can't like approach it, big dick swinging, just assuming he's like a god of this. Because even as the anime goes on, and he learns that compared to everyone else, he is basically a god. He still doesn't just go around flaunting his power, because he's like, well, if I go around doing that, someone can just sucker punch me. Because if I'm a player here and I'm this powerful, there could be other players here who are just as powerful that can cause me or Nazarick harm, so I have to be careful with what I'm doing. Like, that's just the kind of thinking I love, because it's like, oh yeah, like, totally, that makes so much sense. And I'm not saying Overlord's some masterclass in storytelling. I just really like intelligent main characters, because obviously you need to give them some sort of vulnerability, because if you made the right decision every time, it wouldn't be interesting. But just seeing, them going through, decision making to, make sure everyone's safe is good. Approaching everything with, caution, and still, fucking up because of your own hubris, or you just overlooked something. That's interesting to me. So as the show goes on, basically, Ainz reconfirms how everything's working in this world. He gathers all these floor guardians, who are basically his generals of Nazarick, all of which are pretty cool. All have their own personalities and stuff. What were your like first impressions of like the floor guardians specifically? Because they're like the second most important characters next to Ainz himself. Like, how did you think about all their introductions?
I mean, they all kind of seem like, your typical JRPG level boss crew, which is kind of cool. And since I'm a giant fan of JRPGs, I've been playing those my whole life. I'm sure I've said that plenty of times, but like when I'm looking at this show, that's kind of how I'm approaching it, is from the lens, since it was like a game he was playing. And they all kind of match like what you find in a JRPG cast of, I guess, evil villain crew here. And so it's kind of cool to see them, because I could imagine playing this story in like a JRPG format and like still enjoying it, because it's exactly like the games that I would love playing as a kid. And the designs for it are all like, their shape language for all the characters are really dope, and all their powers and stuff are like very unique to each other. And the way that he talks to them about, it's like, well, this one's in charge of this. They all have their specific roles to play, so it does fit very well into that like JRPG category.
I thought they were all like really cool off the bat. On the surface level, they're all very different from each other, which is just very unique. But I also like the fact that each of them were created by, well, besides the two elves, they were each made by different of like the leader guild members, as well as Ainz, and that so each of them have their own different personalities. But to add more, but to add to like a deeper personality to them, they have both negative and positive aspects of of themselves. Some of them, like portraying to their actual creator's personality, as Ainz keeps referring to. Um, I was a little annoyed at Albedo, because I don't really like the crazy mad in love with another character. But when I remembered that Ainz changed her personality to that, compared to what her original setting was, which was just a she was
She's a
a
bitch.
she was just a total bitch and bitch setting. So it's like I was like I think I would have hated that more. So I guess I'll just suck it up and deal with her current personality. I got used to it eventually, but I was like I'd still prefer if she wasn't interrupting every single fucking thing Ainz was doing.
It's so like I kind of agree with you because I think my how I described it when I first watched the anime before I really got into like the light novels is that like the thing that annoyed me about the show is all the dick sucking, like all like, oh god, Ainz, you're so great, you never make a mistake, yada yada yada, and it kind of got on my nerves.
I actually thought that was funny because where I was watching it, someone commented, I was like, this whole show is just everyone gaslighting themselves into thinking that Ainz is this super powerful, intelligent master. Which for some part he is, but for the most part it's everyone else like doing the work for him entirely.
Yeah, but that's also why you have Albedo so much because as the show goes on, he leans on her more and more. Him and or her and Demiurge, he leans on, because when it comes to like general strat, like he has a lot of general ideas. Like Ainz, he's an office worker and he plays a video game where he had to run a guild, so he has like a lot of like general ideas how things should work, but not like the super specifics, which is where he fumbles. Um, but yeah, as the more I got understood, that was like kind of like the point of the story. It didn't bother me anymore. Um, but anyways, moving on. So the next big story beat is basically there's this small little farm village just outside of wherever Nazarick got teleported to that becomes under attack by an organization called the Slain Theocracy. This country that's like super religious. I guess they're trying to like provoke conflict with what is called the Riestes Kingdom. Ainz observes this and decides that this is a good time to gather information, essentially, and decides to intervene, both to test out his powers on people and see how they differ from the game, and again, like I said, to basically get this village to owe him. And he does a lot of information gathering, as I mentioned before, learning about the currency and like the state of the world and like the powers that be and stuff like that. Um, then it is interrupted by this guy called Gazif Stronov, who's apparently the strongest man in the Riestes kingdom, was chasing these guys down, and they get hit by a second wave of these people from the Slain Theocracy, and you actually get a little bit of Gazif taking on these people after he thanks Ainz for saving the village, because he's a very like heroic guy. He's like, oh, there's people needs heroes, and he kind of like respects Ainz for his coming around and saving this village. But he's like, no. He's like, I did it, for a reward. Don't think I'm totally magnanimous or anything. To just to keep people, don't think he's doing it all just for no reason, because that would be more suspicious than just wanting cash. And so you kind of get like he's the strongest man in the kingdom versus these guys who summon these angel creatures, which as of right now we don't really know their power level compared to Ainz. But he goes up against these guys, kind of gets his ass kicked. He puts up a good fight, but like he kind of gets destroyed. And Ainz ends up saving him at the last second. And Ainz steps in and fights these Slain Theocracy guys who can use these summoning crystals to summon these angel things, which Ainz recognizes is from Yggdrasil from the game. But they're really, really low powered creatures compared to him. But everyone else thinks they're practically godlike. And he takes them on and just completely destroys them, right? So it's kind of giving you an idea of what his power level is compared to what people tote as the strongest man in the kingdom and these creatures that they tote as like nearly godlike beings, right? So it's a lot of like world building in that sense about, gauging his power level in comparison to this world. So how do you guys think they handled that whole situation? Like what did you like about that whole little arc there with Karn Village?
It's a nice introductory to the character, like portraying how strong he is, because it's kind of hard to set that up, right? To just be like, well, how do we know how strong this character is? And is he going to go fight like a dragon or whatever? So I thought that he might do this whole, like, I'm going to go on my, world tour here to save villages, because he's not necessarily evil, like, through a perspective, of course, and getting all these people to be like, hey, I worship that guy, and he's really cool. And then people start going like, wait, who the hell are they talking about? But he's just trying to create notoriety for himself. The fight itself was pretty dope. Also, Albedo's like armor is super cool. But him doing like magic and just laughing at these dudes who are just throwing like pretty cool looking monsters at him, and then he's just like, all right, y'all are gonna get smoked real quick. and then helps everybody. It's like, is he really a bad guy? But I could see that through the perspective, like if you played a JRPG and you were actually playing as the villain the whole time, he wouldn't be running around just going, "I'm evil, everyone, look how evil I am." He would just be doing probably the same type of shit to get people on his side. So it was kind of a like, well, he's just helping people, I guess, but also murking these guys, and he doesn't really know why they're here outside of whatever the village is saying, because they could have been good too. But for an early action sequence, it was kind of neat, and that sword wielder guy was pretty cool.
What about you, Edwin?
You described Ainz as like a very intelligent character right off the bat because of his experience playing a game. He takes everything like really, he rationalizes everything and takes it one step at a time. Like that's what he does in like that very moment is he assesses the situation in the village. Like clearly the ones doing the killing are more or less the bad guys because they're killing unarmed villagers. And just like the way they talk about it, it was like, yeah, they don't really seem like good guys. So he eliminates most of them, and the rest run away. He does flex with a Death Knight, which was like, oh shit. It was,
that was cool.
That was actually it was pretty creepy looking. It was like I don't know if that was like the smartest move. Is just showing the fact that that you're right off the bat a necromancer. It was like, yeah, I'm a necromancer. I'm totally not like labeled as the evil class in most RPGs. You simply could have let Albedo take care of it instead of like flexing undead powers onto innocent people you're trying to earn trust for. But it's like the fact there's like one thing that I definitely would not have like thought of is the fact that it was like, no, I'm doing this for free. I was like, no, I would have actually just said that instead of like thinking it would be suspicious to do something like that for free, when in actuality he said it was like, oh, I want money, but in reality I just want to talk to the chief for information just to learn more about the world. I would not have thought that far. So it was like this is already like a testament to like how smart he is for like the entirety of the series.
And the fight. Oh, I was just gonna say it's probably better that he sent the Death Knight instead of Albedo because she's that shit crazy.
Well, I mean, it was like that was just my opinion, considering that I don't think Albedo did anything for that entire episode besides like try and pick a fight. Yeah, it's like, but it's like flexing something like that giant Death Knight. Like I would be absolutely scared. I don't care like how the summoner like looks. The fact that he summoned that, it was like, you already terrify me. The fact that you can do that out of thin air when no one has ever seen anything like that. But like the actual fight against the slain theocracy, I feel like I've seen that fight before, but not in its entirety. So the fact that he just let Gazif go and fight the army, and then just to see how well he does compared to them, he can already like tell the difference between like the regular soldier's power compared to like mage power, and see like all the spell casting that they know compared to his limitless power. So, and like the position swap that he ended up doing with Gazif right before he was about to be killed was a cool thing to do. I was like, yeah, I'm just taking your place and I'm going to end this shit. It was like with my mass power. I was like, it's still like a huge flex, the fact that he's just destroying everything and so easily. Like it doesn't help. I was like, cool, that guy, that super powerful guy that no one has ever heard or seen before, just saved this tiny village. I was like, I don't know how comfortable I feel about that, but I mean, I guess I'm alive.
Yeah, it's more like he's relying on that good faith for people to like, not keep him like a secret, but this like Karn village is so far outside of like the main populace that it's kind of lucky in the sense that they don't say anything. But yeah, like I think Albedo doesn't do anything because the one thing that Ainz knows and that he says repeatedly is that he's really good at not showing all of his cards. Like he only uses as much force as is necessary. I mean, he was flexing there obviously, but it was also for, again, information gathering, again, comparing himself to what, other people in this world. He purposely takes damage so he understands what it feels like. And like he doesn't have Albedo do anything because he doesn't want Albedo showing her power. He only wants to show what he can do. Like, he keeps all of his cards really close to his chest because he repeatedly says, especially in the light novel, how important it was to keep information that you have to yourself. Don't share with other people because information is power. So because even in Yggdrasil, that was like a big thing because people had to figure out the game themselves. So he developed like a really good system of like whenever he found something out, they only shared it within the guild. You don't share with other people because if you have an advantage, you don't share it and you don't show your hand entirely, right? So yeah, it was a really interesting way to set things up. But again, he also sets up a thing that kind of not really fucks him over later, but could have fucked him over if he didn't play it out right when he gave his health potion to the girls that he rescued when he first sees them, because he doesn't understand that health potions from Nazarick are not the same as health potions from this world, which sets something up for later. But yeah, so he saves Karn Village and gets more information. After that, he decides to basically disguise himself as Momon. So he's a Ainz Ooal Gown is a caster. He's a mage, but he disguises himself with a bunch of really heavy armor from Nazarick and basically transforms himself into a warrior. But he can't use like hardly any of his magic while he has all this armor on. Partially because he's a skeleton, but he does have illusion magic to disguise himself. But it's mainly to make sure a lot of people don't know what he looks like, even his illusion self. And he recruits one of his, not his floor guardians, but a member of the Pleiades, which is basically like combat maids, because this is an anime, we have to have maids fighting. Who looks the most human and has her name's Narbril Gamma, accompany him to the city. Again, basically information gathering as an adventurer. Not only to information gather, but to gain money as well, because their Nazarick coin, while it is worth something, they can't just use it anywhere because it's obviously nothing like it'll print them as foreigners, so they need like local currency. So they go to this town, they join the guild, they go to Erantel, and he's trying to find like jobs. And another thing, another detail I like is that when he goes up to the board, he's like, oh, I can't read anything, I can't understand this world's language. Apparently, in the books, I don't think they actually explain the anime, but in the books they explain it, like when he's talking, he is magically somehow speaking the language. Like he can understand people and they can understand when they talk, but he can't read any of the written language. He has to learn that. So they basically keeps trying to ask for like the biggest, bestest jobs, but there's a ranking system because it's a guild and an anime, and he's the lowest ranking one, and he has to end up taking like this lower job to escort. He was going to go on a monster slaying quest with another group of newbie adventurers, but they get picked up by this guy called Inferior, who is a local alchemist who apparently was looking for Momon. Because earlier, he basically gets into a bar fight and again flexes and ends up fucking another patron's like shit over by basically bashing a potion they had. And in an attempt not to draw attention as she's yelling at him for breaking her shit, he just gives her another of these red potions and basically, here, take this, go away, I'm sorry. And again, doesn't realize that a red potion is, not common here. So she's like, oh, okay, and she goes and takes it to these alchemists, and they're like, this is crazy, where did you get this? And she tells them from this guy. So Inferior, the guy who works at the alchemist shop, seeks him out because he wants to learn, where the hell he got this crazy magic potion, because it's like super powerful. So he joins this group of adventurers, and there's just like a lot of like almost a whole episode with very little fighting. Only like one quick skirmish with some goblins and ogres to show off. Basically, even as Momon, he's powerful enough that he can just strike these creatures down, which is super impressive to these people. Even though he's a caster, his like very rudimentary like melee combat skills are still amazing enough to be like super high tier compared to them. But basically he's like reminiscing about his own group of friends that he used to adventure with. Like this group of adventurers is reminding him of them. And he gets a bit nostalgic with these people, and they travel back to Karn Village. But between here and there, Narbril Gamma, and as you learn, a lot of like basically like 99% of Nazarick does not like humans. Ainz, formerly being one, doesn't really care either or. Especially because you learn as a skeleton, as an overlord, as an undead, he seems to have like not like his feelings have changed. So like he doesn't feel like he's a human anymore, but still doesn't hate them. But Narbril Gamma does not like talking to humans, and she keeps getting hit on by another dude, and she spills Albedo as a name. and which will lead back to, because Albedo also got mentioned back in Karn Village, where Ainz was rescuing them from. Basically, they go back to Karn Village so Inferi can get these herbs that grow there. And Inferia puts it together that he's Ainz, and which is unfortunate because Ainz like, ah, crap, I messed up because everything went full circle, and she mentioned Albedo, she shouldn't have done that. And but basically, it's Inferia on his side because he helped Karn Village, where basically his crush lived, right? So then they go into the forest where they keep hearing this. He's told over and over again this thing called the Wise King of the Forest lives in here, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna fight that so I look like a badass and get more renown, right? So I can get up these ranks and get better jobs for more money really fast." Which turns out to be a comedy bit because the Wise King of the Forest is this giant hamster thing, and it's a really funny encounter, honestly, because he's like, "It's fucking Wise King of the Forest, my bony ass," and he thinks it's lame as fuck, but everyone else in this world thinks it's crazy cool because he just immediately like casts one spell and tames it essentially, and they take it back to town and he's a hero. So that's like the second big part of the anime. So what do you guys think about that whole? How about basically the introduction of Momon and his first like little adventure out there to Karn Village and back again?
I was kind of worried that we were about to go down a story arc where he's like, I'm at the lowest rank of this guild, and now I have to go through the rest of this season ranking up. But what we'll find later, of course, is a lot faster. I kind of liked, unfortunately, the party that he meets, and I like the chick who's like accompanying him. Her design's pretty cool. Granted, she's still doing the whole getting used to being around people. The I guess the orc scene with like the CG orcs, they were kind of a little wonky, but like it was okay, I suppose. But overall, like that was a nice little, I guess, kind of world building episode, and he reveals his like face to them as well. But it's kind of like meeting another party of people, and the other team was pretty cool. So I thought that they'd be introducing some like long form, like newer characters because they kind of have a little bit better design than the typical like patrons of this same guild that they're walking by.
And what about you, Edwin?
I like the way that they made the world. It's like the adventure guild is just like a convenient thing for Momon to like actually use for information gathering. Uh, the I was surprised that he wasn't able to read the actual language just by being able to speak it. I feel like that would have been a very important thing to like study up on first, but I guess there was not really any other way around it. It was still learning. The ogre fight was pretty cool. Just seeing Momon like just use two huge great swords in each hand and just slice everything very easily. It's just cool like watching Ainz like be both a warrior and be a sorcerer in the same way, but it's like equal in power. It's just cool to see. It's just cool seeing like a really strong warrior do shit like that, as well as a sorcerer casting crazy spells. I just like that. I just like seeing that in anime. So now it's just like the same character doing both. I like the character that he was traveling with as well. What was the village called again?
Karn Village, the little one.
Yeah, Karn Village. I did not think that they would be going back there almost immediately. I had a thought that the girl that he saved would have a bigger part, considering like how much she was on screen, how much Nines helped her in at the time when he was saving the village. It was like I thought that she would have a big purpose, but later on, it was like I did not think her purpose would be that fucking big.
I'm sorry, you're talking about Henry, right?
Yeah,
the girl
Henry.
from the village. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean everything's just playing out in a really smooth pace. I was a little lost, but just continuing to watch it, just all pieces together. The giant hamster in the forest, I was not at all expecting. I'm pretty sure, like everyone else, I feel like they could have. It's definitely not the same. Momon definitely didn't give the same name between the sub and the dub, but I feel like the dub one they could have given it a better name than fucking Hamsky.
Hamunske.
Yeah, I mean that. I mean it's quite close enough, but I still feel like it was a dumb name.
He was going to call it Hamtaro.
That
I
would have
think
been.
I think
a
that's
bit
an
funny.
exclusive thing in the dub. I think that was just a dub joke. I don't remember that being a suggestion in the sub, but I don't think that was funny.
I mean, there is one thing about the hamster that I found kind of strange. Because the alchemist kid, he said specifically, it was like, please don't kill the hamster, because then it'll make the forest more dangerous, especially to Karn village. So it's like, so Momon is just like, okay, I won't kill it, but I'm gonna take it away. It was like, that's still gonna cause the same fucking problem, because without the hamster there in that forest, the monster is still gonna show up. You killing it and taking it away is more or less the same thing.
Hey, that sets up a plot thread for later. But yeah, I think it was cool because it gives more of a because like Ainz' whole shtick is that he feels really alone here because his guild was already dying off by the time Yggdrasil went down. So seeing these like adventurers out in a group is like really nostalgic for him. And one says something that like he says like, "Oh, I used to have friends." Like, don't worry, you'll find new ones. Like, no, I'll never have the same ones. And I always thought that his reasoning might have been kind of weak, but I always have a weakness for like stuff when you lose friends and stuff like that. I don't have any siblings, so that stuff doesn't hit me. Like I feel more for Ainz than I do for like I don't know. Weirdly enough, what's his name from Demon Slayer, the main character, Tanjiro. Because I don't have siblings, so it's like his whole thing with Nezuko and his sisters and brothers. Like I can understand from like a human perspective. Obviously, you love your family, but it's like I don't have that same kind of like sibling love. All I have was my friends. So I understand how lonely he feels, and he doesn't feel that same way from the NPCs because they basically worship him. They're not his friends; they're his followers. And so whenever he like, it's like that's like his one major like depressing thing about this world is that he's alone and he's desperately trying to find someone else, another player, to relate to. Um, but yeah, but while all this is going on, you get a couple funny bits here and there, stuff that's like completely pointless where he cut to like Albedo in bed with an Ainz body pillow, which is funny, but it's completely pointless. It's just meant for laughs. But there's a darker backstory going on where basically these two characters, this necromancer dude and this rogue chick called Clementine is basically trying to raise this army of the dead underneath Irantel. And they need Inferia to use this magical item because we're also introduced to a thing that Ainz learns that's new to him to this world is that people are sometimes born with talents and they're basically just like essentially superpowers, but they're really rare. And Inferia is one of them, and he can use any magical item without any training or anything. He use any of it just instinctively. And they need to have him use this one magical item to control this army of the undead, basically. Now, Clementine's a super sadistic kind of roguish bitch who is like overly evil, but to the point I kind of love it. Just like a love to hate her sort of character. And she basically has to find Inferia who she is or who he is, and she's lying in wait for him when they get back to Karn. So when they get back to Karn, Ainz and Narbril, or I guess Nabes, who is her like alias, take Hamunske and go to register him at the guild. I guess I don't know what that means. I guess you have to register your mounts. But they leave that group of adventurers and Inferia to bring all those herbs that they got back to their shop. And unfortunately, Clementine's waiting there for them. And we cut away from it, but we learn that Ainz is going to meet them there later. He runs into Inferia's grandmother at the guild, basically, and she knows who he is because she's like, "Oh, I wanted to buy that potion. My son went with you." He's like, "Would you escort me back to the shop?" And he's like, "Sure." And they go back to the shop where they learn that Clementine has just completely slaughtered that adventure group that he was with, and kidnapped Inferia. Basically, he dispatches them because she turned them into zombies, and he also learns that one of them, the mage person who was supposed to be a guy but was actually a girl, in disguise the whole time, which again is a plot point for later. But he gets really mad about this, not as mad as you would imagine, but he's like, "Well, that's fucking sucks. These people were kind of cool and they helped me, kind of learn more about this world." And basically tells Inferior's grandmother, he's like, "Hey, you want your grandson back? Hire me." Again, it's more believable that he would do that than just saying, "Oh, I'll selflessly go rescue your grandson from these clearly really dangerous people." He's like, "No, pay me everything you have." Basically because his whole deal is like, "Oh, sweet, now I can get these two under my thumb because Inferia knows who I am, basically. So if I can get them really under my thumb, especially with his talents and stuff, this is a good thing, She agrees, and him and Nabe figure out who took them because they trace these adventurer trinkets they all wear. Clementine takes them as like trophies. They trace those items and find out where they're hiding. They go to this graveyard and there's like tons and tons of undead there. The guards are very quickly overwhelmed, but then Momon comes there and he starts bashing through them. Showing me again, he's using it as a thing like, hey, look at how cool I am. I'm amazing. Look at me, I'm the hero. Boasting himself up to get recognition around so he can get up in the ranks faster. But they get into the graveyard and basically Ainz gets into a fight with Clementine and Nabe gets into a fight with the necromancer guy. And at first, Nabe is fighting like Nerf because Ainz says you don't show him everything you can do, and she's fighting like these like undead dragons, and she's still holding her own because again people are like, oh, you're a caster, you can't fight physically, and she's actually just like beating them with a scabbard sword, which is hilarious. But then Ainz is fighting Clementine, and Clementine the entire time is talking like, did you know those guys? Oh, I'm so sorry I killed them. He's like, no, I barely knew them. He's like, oh, well, that's disappointing. He's like, yeah, no, I can't really blame you for what you did because you're just trying to get ahead in the world. You just kind of killed tools that I was going to use later, so that's why I'm mad at you. But I can't be mad at what you did, otherwise I'd be a hypocrite. And then she's like, oh, well, that's not as fun. And, they start fighting and stuff. Halfway through, Ainz decides to tell Nabe to basically just, like, cut loose, and she very much does and just obliterates the skeletal dragons who are supposed to be immune to magic, but they're just immune to lower tiers of magic, and she's capable of using like way higher tier magic and just kind of destroys them. Whereas Ainz, just lets Clementine basically stab him because he's a skeleton and doesn't do anything, and just gets her to jump on top of him to where she can just grasp her and just slowly squeeze the life out of her. And one of my favorite things in a lot of animes is just like as he's squeezing her, he's like, yeah, I can't really reprimand you for doing what you did, but one thing I forgot to mention is that I'm a huge hypocrite, and he just fucking kills her. I'm like, that is one of my favorite lines ever. I love it so much. Yeah, that was one of the most hype moments in Overlord for me, just because it's just so snarky, and I love it. But yeah, they save the town from these undead people. They save Inferior. They have to heal him and stuff, but he's all safe and stuff. And they basically take Inferior and his grandmother back to Karn to work for Ainz, doing potion stuff. So yeah, that's basically the undead part of it. That's like the little darker story in the background going on with the other Momon stuff. What do you guys think about that fight and everything that happened in the graveyard?
When the whole party got killed, I was like, dang, they just wrote these characters off that we were being introduced to. And I think that kind of made me more interested in the show because I like it kind of has that like nobody's safe type of thing. Of course, you have like the plot armor of the main character, but it's like, oh, okay, well, all of them are dead. And then like the mage being a chick, they, earlier they were camping and they were like, yeah, there's no girls in our party because then that kind of like messes up everything. And they kind of make a nod. So they were just trying to fit in and stuff. And I'd like to think that he is doing this because he is getting revenge, even though he's saying he's not. But that fight with Clementine is something that I remember seeing, and I might have seen like an online clip or something of it when someone was doing like montages or whatever. But I was like, this feels really familiar to me. Like these undead dragons are really familiar. But it was kind of cool to see them because, like though the dragons are CG, that was kind of fun. Like just kind of seeing them like flex again their power. And the Clementine chick, like she's really cool. She kind of reminds me of what is it? The Jack the Ripper from Fate, the like rogue, crazy, like whatever. Yeah. Like her armor set's cool, and her just I don't know. She was a pretty cool character, but yeah, she gets crushed, and it's like really fucked up. Like her teeth are like falling out and everything, and it's like damn, okay. And for some reason, I thought that was like the finale of the season. So when I realized that there's still like maybe 5 episodes left or something, it's just like, oh, I thought this was like the big like story arc, I guess, but there's more to it. So from whatever my, preconceived thoughts on the show were, I kind of was like, oh, there's more to this. All right. So I kind of tuned in a bit more after this whole like section happened because it really kind of intrigued me a bit more with like the themes of it.
Yeah, this really hits you with like, oh, this is how real the show's gonna get. We just killed off all these characters. And yeah, I love how violent Clementine, because she realizes when she's in Ainz's grasp that he's an undead. She can't do anything, that she is well and truly fucked, and what her like scrabbling and like scratching at his skeletal face and headbutting him is just like pure primal desperation, and it's like, you know, fucking herself up so bad trying to get away from you. You really see like how scared she becomes, and you know, it's one of those things where it's like we only had a couple episodes, hell, like 10, 20 minutes with her maybe up until this point, and she's just so comically evil that you do want to see her get her comeuppance in like the worst way possible, and I think it's really satisfying the way they did it. But Edwin, what do you think about this part?
To be honest, I almost completely forgot that this whole part even happened. No, so it's good that you reminded
It's
us.
like my favorite part.
I was like, now that I remember, I was like, oh yeah, this part was pretty dope. I was like, I don't know why I forgot about it, but it's like, just to explain, I've watched the entire series, so it's 4 seasons long, so the fact that this happened in the very first season, I can't exactly blame myself that I forgot, but then I still said I did forget. The whole thing was pretty cool. I am a little annoyed that he didn't, like, I like the group that he was with, the other adventurers, but I am annoyed. I understand. I'm just annoyed that he made the choice to not revive when he saved Karn Village, to not revive the villagers that were killed, even though he had the ability to. And his reasoning was correct. It would seem weird if he did do that. But for the adventurers, like, yeah, they were still had a lot of potential to be useful. And then it was just him and the alchemist. There was no one else there. He could have revived them, but he chose not to. It was like no one would really question all that much, considering like how obviously you showed off your immense power. I'm just annoyed that he didn't revive them, even though it was like logically it makes a bit of sense, but I personally would made a choice to bring them back. And then the graveyard fight, I just like the fact that he's just like, he just shows up and then he's just like, all of you get to safety, I got this. And like me versus the army of the dead, and then he just jumps over the fence and then just demolishes everything. And it's just very funny, the reactions of the other guys that didn't listen to what he said and just watched like the amount of bones he just left behind of all the killed zombies. The skeletal dragons were pretty cool. It was surprising that it was just surprise, like just a giant skeletal 3D dragon. I thought they were just really cool looking. The fight was just like prolonged just because he told Nabe to hold back. It was like she held back so well that I thought she was actually having trouble, but no, she's just really good at listening orders. The fight between Clementine, I already fucking hated the bitch. I was like, I don't care how hot she was, I still wanted her to die. I was like, I did like the fact that she used the adventure tags that everyone has to like make up her armor. I thought that was like a unique aspect of her character. It's dark, but I still thought like making like your victim's armor part of your own was cool. And then the whole fight with Momon, I was like, yeah, this is totally one-sided, and he's just playing with her. But the way that he actually did end the fight was pretty cool. I think I played it a few times over.
Yeah, it's so fucking. His lines are so good. It's like, unfortunately for you, I'm a huge hypocrite. It's like it's so fucking good. And something that she actually says that in the light novels was brought up earlier by the adventurers when they were fighting the goblins and ogres, I think is a neat detail, is that he swings the sword like, you know, Clementine describes it as like a brute just hoping he hits something, because he doesn't know how to swing swords. Like, this is his new body. Like, his body is capable of holding these things, but he doesn't know how to sword fight. It's just being compensated by the fact his body is so overwhelmingly powerful that when he does hit something, it just fucking obliterates it. So it's kind of interesting because he's like, yeah, he's not a master swordsman. His power is just overcompensating the fact he actually has no skill at swordplay. Because casting spells, he just has to think about it, and he knows how the spells work, so that's how he's so good at it. But when it comes to swordplay, he looks like an amateur just swinging swords around and hitting shit. But because of how powerful he is, everyone's still impressed anyways, which I just think is a neat detail. And to answer your question, like, I don't think Ainz himself has Revivify magic, like, as a spell. Like, I understand what you're saying. He says he could revive those people at the village, but he's holding a wand. So I think what his reasoning is, and he does this again a lot of the times in the book, his thoughts are explained better, is that he has limited amounts of revivify items to properly revive, not to bring back as a zombie because he can do as much as he wants, but to properly revive someone. number one, he doesn't know how rare that is in this world, so that could be just something that doesn't happen and he could be a fucking god immediately. But even though he did like the adventurers, it's not like he was in love with them. He's like, yeah, these guys are cool, but for something that's really for a limited item that I do not know if I can, make more of these or get more of these, these people aren't worth my time to revive. And he does sort of pay it back in a plot thread later. We'll see. I think it's next season. But so that's his reasoning for not using the revive magic on them, and I think it's perfectly reasonable because, like I said, I like Ainz because he's not totally magnanimous. He makes selfish decisions, but if it's for the good of Nazarick, that's what he's going for. Sometimes it will result in him being a dick. He is the villain of this world essentially. So his reasoning, not being, throwing that stuff left and right. His mercy when he gives it is neat, but it's only if you do something for him or he finds you useful. But anyways, and a small thing in the background that we saw this entire time was Sebas, who is like the head butler, and another maid called Solution is also out because, again, they're very human-like, so they're out gathering intelligence near the capital. But the last plot thread we have of this season is during this whole Momon experience, another one of the maids, I forget her name, but the bug maid, she tries to contact Ainz, but Ainz is in the middle of dealing with the Inferior situation with the Necromancer, so it just tells her, hey, I'll call you back when I have a chance. Turns out she was trying to tell him that Shaltir, one of the Floor Guardians, who was also sent out to gather information with those two, Sebas and Solution, apparently went rogue. And that's a huge deal because, she's incredibly powerful. And then we get a brief episode from their perspective showing how Shaltir turned. Basically, Shaltir's like a full combat kind of character. She's not meant for like stealth or anything. She's pretty much the most powerful overall Floor Guardian. And basically her job was to find people that could use those martial arts that are basically like weapon magic essentially to increase your strength, speed, and stuff like that. Stuff that wasn't part of Yggdrasil. And to bring people like that back to Nazarick for experimentation. And she separates from Sebas and Solution because they get ambushed by a bunch of bandits, and she finds out where they're hiding and that they have this guy called Ainz Ooal Gown who's apparently a really good swordsman, and she's like, oh, that sounds like a good person to bring back. I'll see you guys later. You guys go do your information stuff. I'm gonna go do this. And so she goes to this hideout, massacres everyone, fights Brain, who again turns out to be a complete joke to her. He's going at her with his katana and she's deflecting with her pinky fingernail, which another strength of the book is that entire sequence, you get stuff from Brain's point of view. You're not getting it from Shaltir's point of view. You're getting it from Brain's, and you're really kind of experiencing the fear in Brain's mind and why he was so freaked out by it, because he is one of the strongest in the land, and he's fought vampires and stuff before, and she's just completely thrashing him. However, he does end up escaping, which pisses off Shaltir because she doesn't have any kind of like pursual magic, essentially. But in her rage to try and find him again, she gets ambushed by a group of adventurers that have this item that brainwashes her, but she kills them halfway through the brainwashing, but not fast enough. So she's kind of like in this haze state where she's against Nazarick, but the people who controlled her are dead, so they can't give her orders. So she's kind of like in this neutral state. So Ainz and Albedo find her like this, and Ainz he tries to use this super powerful item to break the curse, which, first of all, he says, mind control shouldn't even work on Shaltir because she's an undead. And he tries using this magic that basically is an uber powerful wish spell, and it doesn't work either. When he realizes that whatever they used on her is a world tier item, which essentially is like the best of the best from Yggdrasil items, and freaks out because of it, because he's like, oh shit, not only because this is what I like about the series, that that tells you this kind of stuff that is not under his control is in this world, which means there could be players in this world just as powerful as he is, and he's not considering that. So he almost fucks up. But now he has to basically kill Shaltir by himself, who in MMO terms, this is basically soloing a raid boss. So that's not something that's easy to do. This is the first fight in the series that has real weight because Ainz could die here. But basically, he gets in this huge fight with Shaltir, and he uses all these cash shop items he's bought from Yggdrasil. And by the way, from the book, Yggdrasil's basically a crappy Korean pay-to-win MMO. From how it sounds like, it doesn't sound very free-to-play friendly at all. There's a ton
he's
of
playing Black Desert Online.
No, he is. Yggdrasil has tons of microtransactions, gotcha, all this other shit, to get stuff. I'm like, damn, this sounds awful. But Anyway, so he brings all these like crazy items with him, and especially stuff from his other guild mates that he can use temporarily, and fights Shaltir in this really cool fight. Again, they're both kind of like both characters are intelligent, but Ain's just a bit smarter because this is basically like almost a PvP. Even the title of the episode is called like player versus NPC, which is cool. So he fights her, kills her, and he hates doing it because, as he describes, these NPCs are basically like the children of his guildmates that he values a lot. But he's able to bring her back, because Nazarick, he can resurrect these NPCs with enough gold, but he spends like 500,000 ish, which we're not really given to how much Nazarick has, how impactful that is. The book tells us a bit more, which it's a lot to resurrect someone of Shaltir's level. But basically, this gives Ainz a huge grudge against whoever did this because Shaltir can't recall who did it to her. She doesn't remember anything from when she was brainwashed. So he's like, all right, I'm going to find who fucking did this and fuck their shit up, right? So that's the last little arc of the season to basically show us that, yes, there are other things in this world that can harm and be a threat to Nazarick, and Ainz needs to move carefully in order not to get caught out by them. So what do you guys think about this last little arc of the season?
It was really interesting. Shaltir's character, you kind of see her in the very beginning, and then she just kind of disappears, because of the quest or whatever. But getting like, I don't know, her like vampire form is like weird looking. I mean, I get it. It kind of reminds me of the vampire in the first Witcher like cinematic, the weird like creature thing. I mean, everybody was just getting smoked, but obviously that seems to be the motif here whenever anybody's going up against these characters. But then like the whole mystery of her being stuck out here in the middle of a field and being like, who did this? Like, I do like the concept of there being another I guess Ainz somewhere out there. If that is the case, I haven't seen anything else of the show, so I guess spoilers, but for me, if the answer is revealed, but I do like the concept of that because then it's just kind of like you're not the only one, so you don't have this like I'm the king of the castle anymore. But the fight with her was pretty cool. It's kind of funny because he is doing, basically just we're about to prepare for a raid. Everybody use all your buffs kind of thing before it starts. So that's, I don't play MMOs too often, but I've played enough to where it's like, oh, that's kind of silly. And uh, it was, his like planning skills for this fight were kind of interesting because I thought he'd fight her with like the armor and stuff, but he just went full blown like magic user, and her armor kind of reminded me of like a Gundam in a sense, rather than like vampiric armor. It's just she's like in a mech suit, but um, overall it was kind of cool because that I wasn't expecting that fight because like I said, I thought it was going to be over with the one chick in the graveyard. So it's like, oh, we get another like big like battle, and it's actually not one sided this time, which is cool. And you get to see like pretty much all of the magic that he's kind of capable of, plus a little bit more world building of like his group of friends in this mausoleum where he keeps all these world class items and stuff. And it's like, oh, okay, so there's like a bunch of shit that he has in his arsenal that he could kind of, go back to almost like his bat cave in a sense,
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty cool. Like it ends on a nice little would you like to know more kind of cliffhanger, which as a season should, I suppose. But it's interesting enough to be like, maybe I'll tune into if I got time, to start down the path of like season 2 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I especially like reminding myself of the armory scene. It when he's talking to Albedo, and Albedo kind of like spills her guts about how much everyone like values the fact that he stayed when everyone else left, and like how much they value him and why they want to protect him so much. It's like, yeah, it's kind of touching because they really do see him as he and all the others were their creators. They are gods to these characters.
Yeah,
they don't want him to get hurt or die.
It makes her less one-dimensional, even though they kind of like start off by making her that way, where she's just like absolutely programmed to like be head over heels. But then when you're expressing concern and acknowledging that there were others, not just him, it's like, okay, so I'm sure you have some character growth that's coming.
Yeah, and it's just fun that way. Seeing Ainz when he gets serious to fight is really fun. Because like he had to approach as a caster because Shaltir, because as Kelkitis said, Shaltir kind of counters him because she has both fire and holy magic, which he's weak to both of them. And it's just fun because Shaltir has so much crazy shit she can do. Because again, she is basically like a raid boss, and you're soloing the raid boss, which is insane in MMO terms. I always thought she was really cool because I kind of like the juxtaposition of like she has like this berserker vampire form, and then she could also be like super serious armored vampire form, which is really cool. But I liked it overall. I still like obviously the ending with Clementine better because it's so much more satisfying. Like you don't want him to kill Shaltir, it's just what he has to do. But it's the mystery that gets set up with the world items and stuff that makes it more interesting. But what do you think, Edwin?
Like Shaltir going into the cave and then just like just killing everyone is. It was like I'm trying to find like strong people. It was like, well, it was like my immediate thought. I was like, well, then everyone's gonna die, considering that like how strong you are. Everything else seems insignificant. When Brain came out, it's like I was like, this guy's gonna be. He's definitely not gonna die there because he has like too much detail and like he looks like he's an important character. Yeah, important character energy. I was confused at his name. It was because Brain is just like a weird it's just a weird name in general. I thought I was mishearing it and his name was actually Brian or something. I was like, oh no, it really is just Brian. I was like, all right, smart guy here. Like I mean, it's like the way he tried to fight her. It was like, oh, that's an interesting like combo move. Like clearly didn't work. I mean, it's just like it was an interesting thing that was like he brought up like the reason that he made that move and he just wanted to test it out to her. It was like okay, it was like that gives like the idea is like this is going to be an important character because it ties to another important character. But him running away from her was really funny. It's just like everyone like I was like, oh, there goes our boss. If he's afraid, we should all be. But they just stood there and fought like idiots. I was surprised like the fact that she like lost all like her cutesy like dignified look and then just turned into like it was like clearly yeah. I mean it looked like it looked like a leech like in like a human leech. It was weird looking and it caught me off guard. And the fact that she just ran into the other team, I was really confused because it happened really quickly. I was really confused at what happened at that moment because she was hit with the brainwashing and then she shot a beam through one guy and then hit the one who was trying to brainwash her. I had to watch that moment a few times and I think even in the end I still didn't understand until they like got back to it later in the series. So like I was lost at that point and wondering why she was even stuck out there to begin with. But when she was stuck out there and they just left her alone, and Ainz and Albedo came out, that whole trade-off trying to break her curse, it was actually very concerning. The fact of how concerning to me how worried Ainz got after figuring out the fact that I was like, oh, like that she's like her curse is unbreakable. It's like, are we gonna lose like a floor guarding like immediately? Technically, yes, but I thought she was like the second he didn't have like the ability to revive her until like he actually did it. But that whole fight against Shaltir, I was not expecting her to be that powerful, like just slightly under Ainz's power, because the one who looked the most intimidating is to me was Albedo and Cocytus, because they just seem like the most powerful. But the fact that Shaltir like rivals Albedo herself is just surprising. So I was not expecting that fight to be that difficult for Ainz to do. I forgot the reason why he left out most of his stuff. Was it because if he lost, he didn't want it to fall into the wrong hands? Was that it?
I think it was just to throw her off, to surprise her, essentially. And yeah, he didn't want to like equip all this world item and stuff because the whole point is that he was going to change it out anyways. So he wanted to keep her guessing and stuff like that. So
okay, I mean that whole fight was really crazy, and it's really cool the way that he went through it because he used actual video game logic PvP knowledge. It was Like even I don't do that shit. So it's like it was just more surprising to me. So the fact that he used real world logic that I don't even use against like the NPC. There is one thing that I never understood is that before he did the final hit, Shaltier looked over and like had like a dark space with an eyeball that just looked at her and like a bloodshot, like it was angry. I don't understand what that moment was.
I'd have to go back and look, but I think it's implying that someone is watching the fight. But I also think that Ainz says he made sure no one was watching, or I have to go back and look at it again because I think I might have missed that when I was watching it. But I
Yeah,
think someone might have been watching the whole fight.
yeah, I thought that was like the person that was like mind controlling her, but like I watched the entire season, I still don't understand that moment. But I mean, other than that, like one specific moment, that whole fight was really cool.
Yeah, and it establishes a few things. Obviously, the power level of the Floor Guardians compared to Ainz, and the fact that while the Floor Guardians can die and they can be resurrected, there is like a really big price to pay. So we can't just like throw them around willy nilly and have this happen again. So it makes Ainz a lot more cautious. The other thing was, to answer your question, basically Albedo is very strong, but she is like a tank character. She's actually not really meant to do a lot of damage. She's meant to like soak it up. She's like the most durable of the Guardians. Cocytus is like nearly all offensive, but his is like all melee combat with some small ice powers. But the reason Shaltier is so powerful is the fact that she has essentially both, on top of, I think she just has better gear than both of them. And when it came to Ainz in particular, she had like both of his kryptonites, so that's why I made her specifically really powerful against him. So that's why she's like considered like the overall strongest floor guardian, essentially.
And she had like
magic
like
looked pretty cool too. The way that when she was like going through that place, just like murking everybody, the way it like pooled up into like a blood orb or whatever. I feel like I've seen that before in some game, but I just
Vlad
can't.
from League of Legends.
Oh, okay, there it is. Yeah,
I mean, she also has like she also has like HP drain, but it's weird that Albedo is a tank considering she's a succubus. It's just a weird combination to me.
It is weird, but I like it. I like, not everything's just as what it seems to be, because it's kind of funny because you wouldn't expect this. This isn't until much later, but Mare, who has been, one of the elf kids who is shown to basically be like a druid caster, he's actually can be a tank when he switches his gear appropriately, and he's like one of the better tanks, which is interesting. But yeah, and that's like essentially all of Overlord season 1. We've been going on for a little while, but I want to just get do one more little question to everyone. Like, what was your like favorite part about this season? Like, what was your favorite part about the show overall so far? What's your like least favorite part? And do you want to continue into season 2, or do you want to watch something else for next month?
I already watched the entirety of the series, so
well, too bad. You'll have to rewatch it. Well, it means you liked it, so answer the first two.
My favorite part, I'm not really sure. I mean, because like I'm not really sure my favorite or least because I kind of like the whole thing. It's just like some small details that like I kind of already explained, but I didn't hate any of it. But I liked a lot of it, so it's hard to pin down. It's just really well made.
Yeah, that's fine. That's an answer. What about you, Corey?
I think my favorite part would have to be essentially the world building. Considering that I don't typically go after isekais, like this one was more intriguing to me because of the way they're handling it. I do like that he's not just Ainz the entire time, and that he actually does the like dark armor version to kind of walk amongst like the common folk, and just kind of rather than just shit kicking everybody, and that it kind of gives, at least from what I've seen so far, a little bit of screen time to a lot of the characters rather than just circling around him mostly. So that's kind of cool, and it is intriguing enough for me. I probably will continue watching it. I don't have a lot of time, but the seasons seem to be short enough to where I can kind of absorb them, whether it's like breakfast or
13
something.
episodes.
Yeah, so I can sit down. I mean, I think I watched this whole season on a treadmill, so like it's not it's not that bad to kind of. If it was something that had like 50 episodes in a season, then it'd be like, oh god, But I'd probably give it a go. As for the next one. I suppose we can talk about that, but I wouldn't mind giving the second season a viewing because it does kind of pique my interest with the overall themes of it.
For a lot of politics.
Yeah, it does get it does, like he will grow up in the world, and we will get a lot more politicky. But I still think it keeps the intriguingness around. Um, Now I've dipped my toes into quite a few isekais, and have come out only really liking Overlord and Konosuba. I also really like characters that do have godlike power, but it's fun seeing writers that want to write it in this fact that it's like, yes, they have godlike power, but we have to nerf them in some ways. Maybe not necessarily their power itself, but how they choose to use it. And the fact that they make Ainz intelligent enough to, hoard information and want to learn about this world properly instead of just flaunting his power all about makes him a super interesting character to me. And the fact that they do have all this power, but they have to slowly, they have to creep into the world, kind of feeling it out, being like, how much of this power can we flaunt, Because his goal overall is to spread the word of Ainz Ooal Gown, but especially after the thing with Shaltir, he's like, okay, there are other people or other things in this world that can hurt us and hurt us bad. So I have to take this very carefully and not just going around willy nilly and get sucker punched out of nowhere. So that's how they kind of nerf his power. So it's fun seeing that because I know a lot of isekais, one of the complaints, oh, the character's just a god, But I just feel like in other isekais, it's not as fun. Like Ainz is nerfed in that aspect, and he's intelligent enough not to use it. Kazuma is not a god; he's a fucking loser. So that doesn't really count. And stuff like Slime, like reincarnated as a slime, it's it's kind of in the in between. But anyways, I really love it for that reason, especially because it's almost like Warhammer 40k in a sense when it comes to power scaling. The Primarchs and stuff are super powerful, and the writers have to think of ways to make the stories interesting, even though these characters are really powerful. So they have to figure out situations where power isn't going to solve all their problems.
Well, compared to Konosuba, the isekai that each one has to go through is just basically Cosmo, a perverted doofus trying to fit in a world that's much bigger than he is, compared to Ainz that has to fit in a world that's significantly smaller than him, and he has to find his place in that world where he can easily just overthrow the entire thing with just his mere presence.
Well, he could, but it's also almost like playing Minesweeper because after what happened to Shaltir, it's like, especially it's not even what happened to Shaltir, but it's also like in the first real engagement when he fights the characters from Karn, the theocracy from Karn Village, because he's like, oh, those are angels from Yggdrasil, so there are items and character or monsters from the game in this world, so I have to consider that when moving forward. And then he's like, oh, I didn't consider that there was such a thing as huge world items that could actually hurt us, so there could be another Nazarick level power out there somewhere, and I don't want to get caught off balance if I end up stepping on their toes,
Yeah, some other pay whale is out there, and so you gotta tread carefully.
Yeah, I also like the fact that he was concerned is not to come out as too evil against the world in case any of his other guild members see him. It was like, oh, you're just a villain this entire time, using all of our crap to rule the world.
Yeah. I think that's probably the most unrealistic thing about it is that I agree that it's fun to find another player. The Ainz thinking he's going to find some of his guildmates, I think is kind of weird that he would think that because he knows very well that they weren't online, because I'm pretty sure you could see that from the guild tab or whatever.
They gave him all their shit before they logged off, and
so
why would they still be there if they have nothing?
Yeah, and it does kind of evolve from that to him just trying to find anyone from the game, someone, because again, he wants someone to connect to, because the Guardians and everyone in Nazarick, they're followers, not friends, and he just doesn't want to be alone. I was
gonna say, I think it kind of follows that same principle of a zombie apocalypse, right? Where it's not the zombies that you discover that's the problem; it's another survivor. So when you come across another player, you're like, oh, are you going to kick my ass, or how's this going to work?
Yeah. And I will say, they do leave more and more breadcrumbs as the series goes on when it comes to other players, and that's the most juiciest tidbits of information. And again, properly showing how powerful everything is, so when you see stuff that actually concerns them, you're like, oh shit, that must really be powerful, that must actually be a threat, sort of thing. But yeah, I love Overlord. I actually haven't caught up on the anime. I'm all caught up on the light novels, just not on the anime. So I wouldn't mind rewatching 2 and just keep going. If we keep liking and keep going, I wouldn't mind keep watching it. But yeah, I hope everyone out there listening enjoyed our first episode of the anime book club. I find this really not a manga, not a light novel, but it's just fun, and I thought it was a cute name, and I'm keeping it. But so it sounds like we'll probably continue with Overlord. If not, we might say something, might not. Who cares? But yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed that. So I guess I won't do the usual outro since we're not talking about games today. But I hope all you guys out there had enjoyed listening to us chat about Overlord, and hopefully we will see you next time. We have Metroid in 2 weeks because I miscounted the dates. This is supposed to be before Game of the Month, but we had 5 Sundays this month, and I lost track of time. So we did this a week early, but that's okay. So we'll see you again next week with some kind of topic, maybe Gamescom if that goes over well. So everyone out there, so hope you had a good time. Subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Spotify and Rumble if you enjoyed today's episode, and we will see you all next time.
Later.
Overlord.
Ainz Ooal Gown.
Hey, this is Corey, and thanks for checking out Mediocre Rumble Brothers. If you liked the video, please drop a like, and if you didn't, that's fine too. If you'd like us to talk about any specific games, drop a comment below, or feel free to discuss your experience with the games that we mentioned in the episode. You can also listen to our episodes prior to YouTube on our Spotify. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you again soon.